Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Words on Whiskey, brought to you by Irish Whiskey Magazine. We're very exciting guest with us this afternoon, and we look forward to having a chat with Kevin later on. Just to introduce you to this week's news. So, a relatively quiet week, but Teeling celebrated 5 years today, this week. So they opened 5 years ago. In that time, they've welcomed 500,000 visitors, created over 225,000 casks, and produced over 3 million litres of alcohol. So best of luck to them in the future, and I'm sure we'll hear lots from them going forward. So much good news in now for the bar trade and hospitality sector. So Diageo, parent company of Guinness, have announced a 14 million euro fund to support the pub trade. So that's going to be spent over the next 2 years on infrastructure, and Guinness will be liaising with the on-trade to see what way they can best support the industry. So on top of that, there's also the Restaurants Association of Ireland have started a GoFundMe page in association with Paddy's Irish Whiskey, and they've pledged to match any funding up to 15,000 over the next while. So go check out the GoFundMe page there. And then finally, congratulations to Catherine Condon. She's been appointed distiller at Midleton Distillery. So I'm sure Kevin will fill us in on that over the next hour or so. Don't forget, if you have any questions, here's a chance to put your questions to Kevin, and we'll just bring him in now and check he's there. Kevin, welcome.
Sergius, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Thanks for joining us on the show. And,
no problem.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
A really coveted position, I'm sure. Probably the top position in Irish whiskey. And the whiskey world, and the ink's barely dried on your contract, I'm sure. So yeah. How have the first couple of weeks been?
Exciting. It was all a bit of a shock, I suppose, to everyone, and Brian's departure. But yeah, the last week or so has been very, very busy, very exciting, and looking forward to the challenge ahead. Really, really thrilled. It's an honor. It's a privilege, and I didn't expect to be here if you'd asked me last Christmas or whenever. But it's brilliant, and I suppose if I may, I'd just like to thank Brian. As a work colleague, I've worked with Brian for 22 years. He joined in '97, and I joined in '98. Yeah. And he's been a brilliant work colleague. We had some fantastic times. His contribution to Irish whiskey was huge, and his contribution to Irish distillers, an absolutely fantastic spell. And in particular, I suppose his last 7 years as Master Distiller. And then as a personal friend as well, I know Brian very well.
Both Corkmen?
Both Corkmen, different GA clubs, but both Corkmen. But he's a great friend, and we'll keep in touch. And we're in the middle of a handover at the moment, so I'm trying to use up as much of his time as possible. But I wish him well. He did a fantastic job, and he'll be a big loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd all say that he played a huge role, and obviously you've huge boots to fill. Both Brian and Barry and Billy before. So is there a lot of pressure with the role?
Yeah, look, sure. If your role has its pressures, and it's how you respond to that. I suppose I'm fortunate that in terms of experience in Middleton alone, I've since 1998, and in the spirits industry, I worked. I'm working there since 1990. So first of all, I have a lot of experience, which is helpful. Yeah. Secondly, I suppose, and probably more importantly, I have a very, very good team around me in Middleton. Both on the maturation side, which I know pretty well, and also on the distillation side. A really strong team, and the people I've met over the last 2 weeks, and the well wishes has been absolutely fantastic. And I feel confident heading into it that I'll get, all the support and help that I need. And, they're a wonderful team in Middleton. And look, I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I'm sure it's a very enviable position. But you are maintaining the role of Master of Maturation as well. So it'll be two hats you'll be wearing.
Yeah, two hats, Master Squared. I was
Master
called
Squared.
last week. So it's that's challenging, but it's really exciting as well, because at the end of the day, to produce a good whiskey, it goes through the process right from start to finish. So the two, distillation and maturation, are linked. So I'm really looking forward to combining both roles. And I suppose, look, I'm repeating myself, but I have a very, very good team to help me out. So it's going to be busy, but it'll be fantastic. I suppose the other thing is, which is a big help as well, is over the last 10 years, Brian and I have worked very closely on lots of projects.
Yeah.
And as you know, in Middleton, we've Billy, Dave McCabe, Dave Quinn, Brian, myself, but we all knew what was going on in different areas. It wasn't a case of working in a silo and kind of you didn't know what was happening in each area. But I can tell you, Billy is so well in touch with maturation and distillation. Likewise, Brian knew what was going on in maturation, and I knew what was going on in the distillation side as well. Yeah. So again, it comes back to that team effort, and we'd have a very strong group, and we all knew what was going on. So that's a big help. It's not as if you're just kind of landed into it, and there is a lot of continuity, and that's a big help.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of cross collaboration between yourself, Billy, Ger, Buckley, David Quinn, all the group, and in fact you're heavily involved in being a broth ambassador as well for the group. So it's wearing many hats, I suppose, at the one time.
Yeah, and we all help each other out, and we're all brand ambassadors, and we all do a fair share of travel and explaining whiskey to the whiskey world and telling people what we do, and we love doing that. It gives me great joy traveling wherever to do whiskey talks, and likewise with Ger Buckley and the rest of the team. There's an element of pride, I suppose, when you're in America or anywhere in Europe or even in Ireland, explaining what we do and explaining the process of producing great whiskies. It gives you great pride to actually talk about that. It really does.
I mean, there is a level of transparency that I think is appreciated, and it is very evident in what you guys are doing. You have a large portfolio under you, so you've got the Method and Madness, you have Powers, you have Middleton, you have Redbreast, and of course Jameson. There's not going to be any change to that portfolio over the foreseeable future, is there? In terms of those products will still be available, they're not going to change dramatically.
Oh no, I mean, just have no worries. I'm doing nothing drastic like that. That'll all continue on. I see it, Sergius, as Barry passed on the baton to Brian. Brian now is passing on the baton to me, and like a relay race, you receive the baton, and the main objective is you run with it. You don't drop it. That's the main thing, and you put your own stamp on it. But the principles will stay the same. The product lineup will stay the same. And I'm just going to continue the work that Brian and Barry have done. That's my objective.
Great. Could we just go back and maybe tell us how you got started? Obviously, you were born in Cork. You grew up in Cork. You studied in Limerick, I see.
Yeah.
But how did you get into the industry?
So I'm from a place called Mitchelstown in North Cork. If people, I suppose, recall the old Cork Road from Dublin to Cork, you would have passed through Mitchelstown. Probably lots of traffic jams. The next town is Fermoy. So born here near the foot of the Galties. I was born and raised on a farm. And my brother still farms that farm, and I just live just alongside it, actually. So I've great memories. brought up on the farm. It was fantastic, predominantly dairy, but it was mixed. We also had cereal. We used to grow barley. I have lots of fond memories of growing barley. I remember, the aromas, the dust, the sunburn. So lots of great memories brought up on the farm. It was fantastic. It was busy, and did a lot of sport as well. So really there wasn't much time. We were very, very busy, but it was great. So I went to Midleton CBS, just down the road. Had a great time in school as well. And then I went to University of Limerick, did a technology degree, 4 years in Limerick. And then I suppose the next phase was, at the time, that was 1990, which is a long time ago, Sergius.
Don't remind me. Yeah.
Absolutely. They used to do, the companies used to go around and do a sort of a milk round, where they used to interview probably in, I don't know, February or March. And they used to, select the students, final year students for placement. And it was difficult times back in early 90s, but I was fortunate. I had a few options, and the one I selected was working for Gilbey's of Ireland Manufacturing up in well, at the time it was Naas Road, and they were moving to a new plant in Nanga Road.
Yeah.
So I joined Gilbey's, which was then part of Grand Met, and they used to produce Bailey's Irish Cream.
Yeah.
And I worked in a number of positions there. Started off in the process plant as a process supervisor. Then I moved to bottling as a bottling unit manager. Then I spent time back in process again as a process manager, looking after the process operation. But I suppose it was around that time that we used to take up whiskey from Middleton in tankers to Naas Road and then later Nanga Road, and that piqued my interest in whiskey initially. We used to get the samples of whiskey in. I was on the taste panel, and I suppose I had an interest in tasting, brought the cream liqueur and obviously the whiskey, and I really was interested in where it came from and how it was made. And then around mid-90s, a few of my friends, we went to Scotland on a trip, a holiday. Drove over on the ferry, and we did a sort of a week tour, maybe a week and a bit, of the various distilleries in Scotland. And that was fascinating, and that brought sort of a new perspective to the whole thing and different types of whiskies. And I was really, really interested. And then I suppose an opportunity came up in '98 to work in Midleton Distillery. And I suppose it's suited for two reasons. One, it was an opportunity to work for a world-class distillery, Midleton. And secondly, it got me back to Cork. So there was two good reasons why I moved back.
Was there any inkling back then how successful Jameson and Midleton Distillery was going to be?
It was a very good time. The late 90s, like 98, 99, Jameson was growing, probably double-digit growth. It was a very positive time, and that was one of the reasons for obviously the recruitment process at the time. They were looking for people to help out and push on the distillery, and but it was positive, and things were looking really, really good. So I joined, and then I suppose initial I joined as a distiller, working in brewing, fermentation, distillation, working for Barry Crockett. Learned an awful lot from Barry and the rest of the team down there as well. It's quite a big plant, as you know, and there was a lot to take in. But it was really, really, really good. Learned an awful lot. And then I suppose an opportunity came up to move to maturation as production manager up in the whole area of cask management, vatting and blending in the vat house, warehousing. And I took up that role about maybe 4 years after joining, 2002 maybe. Yeah. And then I started working in that role with Brendan Monks, who was then head of maturation in Middleton, and started working on procuring casks, sourcing oak, and And again, that was an amazing learning curve. Learned so much. And then I suppose the next step was in 2007, early 2008. I took over when Brendan retired. I took over as Master of Maturation, which encompassed anything really to do with maturation, and that's where I've been, and that's brought me to this point. So, going back the whole way, I've been really, really lucky. I've worked in the spirits industry for 30 years now, and both companies, incredible growth. So I've been very fortunate.
You couldn't have foreseen the level of growth that there was going to be, or did they have that inkling back then that would be where we are now?
Certainly, back in 98, 99, yeah, I think things were positive, and no, you couldn't have guessed we would be where we are now. But there was certainly a lot of positivity, and there was a lot of investment starting in Middleton. There was a lot of investment in new types of wood and sourcing oak, warehouse build, plant investment. So it was a great time to join. It really was.
Well, when you were in Gilby's, I was around the corner in JFK Industrial Estate and Coca-Cola at the time.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Literally around the corner, yeah.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Slightly different path. But tell me, the cask management program, obviously, we've all heard the volume that you have, 1.4 million casks, probably
1.6 now. Yeah.
1.6 now, okay.
Yeah.
So that program has been developed and really made into a world-class cask program. It wasn't always like that. I mean, what's changed and what took it to where it is now?
Probably things, if you go back a bit, we rewind the clock maybe to the 70s and maybe early 80s.
Yeah.
It would be fair to say that the quality of casks is not like it is now. Sourcing casks was different. It was challenging times in whiskey because you ended up with whiskey lakes and distilleries were shutting down. It was very difficult to control stocks. You'd end up with a surplus of barrels, or you ended up with a deficit on barrels. So it was a very, very challenging time. But I suppose what happened then, Brendan Monks, my predecessor, he identified very quickly, and the rest of the team in Middleton identified that wood was really, really, really important in terms of the flavour contribution to whiskey. And they started investing heavily on sourcing high quality oak. He started building partnerships, particularly in America, with various cooperages. The specifications were all drawn up in terms of the specifications for casks. He started collaborating with Antonio Paez in Spain, and really, ensuring the provenance of the Oloroso sherry cask that we were getting. Yeah. And he spent many years, working on that. And to be fair, the company, Irish Distillers, they matched that enthusiasm with investment. And that then raised the whole standard of casks. And along with the Coopers in Middleton, Ger Buckley and the rest of the team, they all worked together to bring the standard of coopering and cask management in Middleton to where it is now, which is world class. We treat the casks so well, and that's really how it all progressed, Sergius.
Yeah, I mean, can I ask a question about maturation? I suppose, if I may. What makes a cask a good cask, and what makes one an exceptional cask? And then I suppose the other side of it is, it's all very well having a great cask, but it has to be matched with the right liquid. So how is that all determined? What's the process for that?
Yeah, and again, I suppose you asked a question earlier on about combining the two roles, and you've basically summarized it there. You need a fantastic cask, and you need to match it with good liquid. And that's the beauty of combining the both roles. But in terms of a good cask, look, it all goes back to good wood, and the sourcing of if you take oak, for example, you need high quality, high grade oak to start with, and that's the very first step. And then you're talking about high quality sawmills and, careful attention to detail in the sawmills.
Yes.
If you take the example of our friends in Barala, just amazing attention to detail in the quality control of their production of staves. Any flaw of any size is taken out. So again, that's the next stage, and then you move on to actually manufacturing the cask, and again, attention to detail, total quality, and the guys in America, the guys in Spain, and our cooperages in France, the level of detail is just amazing. So all those steps, the quality of the oak, the quality of the sawmills, the attention to detail, the cooperages, the bunging quality, all that gives you a good quality cask. And then I suppose the next phase is when you take it to Middleton or any distillery is looking after it. It's one thing getting in a cask that's fantastic and really well finished, but you have to look after it, and things like inspection when it arrives on site, nosing it if it's a seasoned cask, making sure that everything is right, and then storing it in the right conditions. We don't store barrels outside. We look after them. The only barrels you'd see outside of Middleton would be barrels that we're actually selling off or going to planters. So you have to look after it all the way. And then within the warehouse, again, you have to look after the cask. You don't want any roof leaks or damage going on from things like that. So you have to be very, very careful. And there you have a slot, actually, or a picture of a cask maturing in Middleton. So there's a number of steps.
Scale.
Oh, there you go.
That's
very good.
That's one warehouse. So each warehouse holds about how many casks?
Each cell, typically a warehouse block in Middleton has two cells, cell A and cell B, and each cell holds 16,800 casks, American barrels.
Right.
And obviously, you'll be holding less if it's sherry butts or wine hogsheads, but on average, about 16,800 American barrels per cell.
Right. And they're all palletized in this way throughout the distillery, or they're
all palletized. We have two warehouses which are exceptions to the rule, warehouse A1 and A2, and they're located very near the Heritage Centre. So if people have done the tour in the old Midleton Distillery, you'll have walked through what we call A1, and in there you have about 1,000, just over 1,000 barrels, which are racked dunnage style, the old style. They're three high, and they're rolled in horizontally. And then the warehouse next door, which is A2, again, we would have some very old whiskey there that would be not vertically, they'd be horizontally rolled in as well. Okay. And the reason for that is that very old casks, you got to leave them in their sort of horizontal position, because if you try to maybe raise it or stand it, you could end up with leakers. And it'll upset the cask. So, very old casks, you'd leave it on the horizontal position. Yeah. But then the rest of the warehouses are all palletized.
Yeah, I forgot to say to you, Kevin, if you want to join me for a drink, I'm having a light one here. I'm having the single grain Method and Madness in the Spanish oak. Well, too early for anything heavier for me. But,
to be honest, Sergio, I had one prepared here as well.
Oh.
I was a little bit nervous, so I said, so I have one here. So I've actually, I suppose, in tribute to Brian, I've the 2018 Middleton Rare.
Excellent,
there you go.
Lovely.
So I'm.
That's a nice tribute.
Yeah. So
Sláinte. And actually, I have a question in from Eddie Darcy. The question is, when do we expect to see your name on a bottle?
Okay. Well. Pretty soon. We have to kind of figure that out over the next few weeks. But it'll either be the 2020 or the 21 version. The bottling is happening very soon, and we just need to work out the timing. But suffice to say, it'll be within the next 12 months of that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that must be a hugely proud moment when you see your name on that.
It is absolutely, yeah. It'll be a very proud moment. Yeah, super.
And I had a question from Leo Phelan. He was asking, will there be any change in style over the Midleton Very Rare from previous years? Obviously, it changes every year anyway, to some extent.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is, again, I suppose Middleton Rare is there since 1984, and Barry and then Brian, they select the cast every year, but it has the same, what I call, I suppose, DNA, or certain flavor characteristics and aroma. You have the American barrel influence, so that DNA is going to continue. I'm not going to make any changes there, but again, I'll sit down and I'll select those casks. I'll go through it in detail, and there will be some subtle differences which I like to work on and add. But in terms of I suppose the profile and the taste profile and the DNA, that'll remain the same.
Okay, I have another question in then from Mark O'Toole. How long is the life of a cask, and do they improve with age, and when do they start disimproving?
The life of a cask, it varies, but you could easily get 30, 40, 50 years out of a cask. But it all depends on how many times you use it and the storage conditions, etc. Like on average in Middleton, we'd be talking maybe sort of 16 to 20 years, something like that for a third fill cask. But then we've casks obviously lasting much longer than that. And then after sort of maybe 20 years or so, we would sell on those casks to, for example, Havana Club. They would take quite a number of casks from us, and then they would use them for another maybe 10, 15, 20 years. So that the life of a cask is very, very, very long. And I suppose there's a great story then. Some of those very old casks after 30, 40, 50 years would go to maybe garden planters or maybe garden furniture, and the life cycle goes on and on. So a very good sustainability story. And in fact, at the moment, we're doing some work with some people in terms of, flooring using whiskey barrels, and it's turning out absolutely fantastic. So you can get your whiskey floor. The staves have to be dried out, obviously, and that takes a bit of time. But then they have to be cut up, and you get a beautiful floor.
Yeah. You touched on sustainability there, actually. Obviously, a very topical point. There does seem to be a concerted effort within IDL to produce a sustainable product and keep that at the forefront. What in particular do you hope to bring to that, to further that on, and what can be done?
There's lots can be done. I mean, in Middleton, we have a sustainability team which was formed there a few years ago, and looking at all areas of sustainability and carbon footprint. If you take the cask, for example, over the last number of years, we've been working with a number of partners in terms of sourcing oak from sustainably. We've collaborated with, for example, the University of Santiago in terms of Spanish oak and the certification of Spanish oak. And in fact, within the next 2 years, we'll probably be at about 50-60% of all our Spanish oak coming in will be PEFC certified. And we'd hope then a few years later, it'll all be 100% certified. And again, in America, we're collaborating with the University of Kentucky. We had a field visit out there last September, Finbar and myself and Ger Buckley. And we're doing a number of projects out there as well in terms of the American tree farm system and the sustainable growing of oak. And again, if you look at France, for example, very, very strong in terms of sustainability of oak and chestnut and acacia. So really good work going on all over the world in terms of sustainability of oak. And, people understand and recognize the importance of our forests. They're so important. Yeah. And if you bring it back home even closer, Sergius, if you look at the Midleton Dark Wheelock project,
yes.
We're collaborating with individual forest owners there. You were actually, I think, at one of the fellings. So these farmers are, they're fantastic people. They look after their oak forests, and for a lot of them, they won't actually see the output of those forests because it takes so long to grow oak trees. But they see the long-term picture for all this.
I think
so that's all very important to us.
Yeah, I think Quilcher are doing a fantastic job on the sustainability there program, and I know you've had a lot of interaction with them, obviously, as well.
Yeah,
Um,
we've done some felling with Quilcha as well, and again, you know, they're very, very strong on the whole sustainability. And again, look, everybody could do more, but we all have to do our fair share in terms
yeah,
of sustainability. If you go to the distillery itself, which you know, I'm getting my head around now. Things like water usage is really, really important, and we're trying to reduce the amount of water that we use. So efficiencies there in terms of water usage is really important, and we have brought down our water usage a huge amount over the last 10 years, and we'll continue to do that. Heat recovery systems, very, very important in reducing the carbon footprint. Sustainable growing of barley. Again, we worked on a program there with farmers in terms of the sustainable growing of spring barley, and that was very, very successful, which we launched there a few weeks ago as well.
yeah.
So all in all, lots of work going on, lots more to be done, and I'm really keen to get stuck into that.
Yeah. You mentioned travel there briefly as well. Obviously, with the COVID pandemic, that's really hugely reduced your mobility. But the plant has stayed fully operational, and I know there's been some great work done there in creating sanitizer for the health services executive. And what's happening down in Middleton at the moment? Are you still in full production, or what's happening at the moment?
Yeah, so when this all, I suppose, broke out in March, around March 12th, we were fortunate that we could keep production going. So the visitor sites were shut down sort of mid-March, but they're planning to reopen there on July the 13th, which is really good news.
Great.
But they shut down. People could work from home as much as they possibly could, which really is working well. And in terms of our production sites, Middleton and Fox and Geese, we, you know, the health and safety of our staff was number one priority. So we really sat down with everybody and worked out how do we split up shifts, how do we avoid, handovers of shifts, how do we, ensure proper social distancing, and everybody was so fantastic in Middleton and Fox and Geese in getting that off the ground. And we've been producing ever since, obviously under difficult conditions, because, you know, we have to split shifts, and people have to change their work arrangements, and they have to change their work times. They have to change their home life in terms of childcare. But I'd have to say people were just fantastic in rowing in with the whole thing, and we kept the operation going. And I suppose not only that, we got involved in producing ethanol for one of our partners, Merview, up in Watergrass Hill, in producing hand sanitizer, and that was amazing. We only had a few days to get the thing up and running. It was new to us, sending up ethanol to Merview. But again, everybody wrote in really positive, and we did everything we could. And only a few weeks ago, actually, we sent up, we produced the 1 millionth bottle of hand sanitizer from Merview. And, you know, it's great it was great for everybody to get involved in that. Very positive.
Brilliant. And I know that in the States particularly, they've done a lot for bartenders as well. And here they've done the bartenders program.
Absolutely, yeah.
Bar Smarts. So
yeah,
you've done your best to look after people as well you can. But I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it's been very good.
I'm sure that people are dying to visit the centres now. And July the 13th, you're saying they're going to be open?
Yeah, July 13th, I think, is the reopening date. And I suppose, you know, everybody's working hard at the moment to make sure that the visitor experience would be really positive and enjoyable and safe. The most important thing is that everybody feels comfortable and they feel safe visiting the visitor centre. So that's what the team are really working hard at the moment on, preparing all that.
Yeah. And at the moment you're in shutdown then, are you? Is it that time of the year where they clean?
Yeah, time of the year.
Or,
yeah, so we're in shutdown mode in the main plant. So this is the time of the year where we basically strip out everything. Lots of cleaning, lots of overhaul of equipment, and we'll be at that for the next probably 3 weeks, and then we'll start up again sort of mid-July, and the year kicks off again, our financial year. On the maturation side, that continues on. We're obviously still emptying barrels, and our product is still going to Fox and Geese for bottling. So that's working away nicely, and our projects are back up and running again. which is great news.
I have another question in here. I think they should remain anonymous. And they're wondering, have you any casks hidden away that you didn't want Brian to get his hands on?
Loads of them. All be revealed. No. Look, there's as you know, with 1.6 million casks, we've lots and lots of options. And over the last few years, I suppose we've brought out many different releases, many innovative cask types.
Yeah.
And my objective is to stay with that and continue the work that Brian did in terms of liquid innovation as well, and distillate styles and rye and oats and all that. So I'm really keen to get stuck into that.
Yeah. So that brings on another question from Spirit Magic on Instagram. They've asked, have Middleton already distilled from mash that includes oats or other grains?
Yes.
I know the answer is yes.
Yeah, we have, absolutely. Yeah, so that's actually maturing nicely in the warehouse at the moment. We did another run of rye distillate there in May, and it was really good. Actually, Brian and myself were tasting that a few weeks ago. So it's coming on nicely. It needs more time in warehouse, but we're very pleased with the flavor profile. So I suppose watch this space.
And are they more likely to come through the Method and Madness range rather than the mainstream, or could it be a new release?
Yeah, we haven't figured that one out yet, Sergius, to be honest. Okay. That there'll be a bit of work to do on that yet, and into what direction it'll go in. We're going to get it right first, make sure the taste profile is really good, and over the next few months or so, we'll figure that out.
Okay. Lots of questions coming in. There's another one in here from Darren Friel. For someone who's looking to learn distilling, any good resources?
So there's lots. I know CIT in Cork and Carlow are running brewing and distilling courses. The Institute of Brewing and Distilling, and I suppose I meant to mention that earlier on, a number of us in Middleton back in the early 2000s, Brian and myself included, we did the diploma in distilling. Yes. Which is a 3-module program, but that gives a very in-depth study into brewing and distilling, right through to maturation. Takes a bit of time, there's a lot of work in it, but it's a really good course. You could also do a general certificate, which takes less time, but again, it's quite a challenging exam to be done there on the certificate. But again, a very good course. Yeah. So they're ones that I would recommend, and again, there's lots of good books out there as well on the whole brewing and distilling, lots and lots of them.
Another question then from lots of questions, crazy. Nicholas, can we ask about the cask makeup of Blue Spot?
Blue Spot? No, you can't.
No, you can't. I didn't think we could.
No, you can't. Yeah, all will be revealed in the but in time. No, yeah, in time.
Again, Catherine Condon obviously is you're going to be mentoring Catherine, I presume, over the next number of years. There seems to be a great mentorship graduate program within IDL. So we've got Dave McCabe, we've Killian O'Mahony, with Karen. I'm sure there are others as well that have joined, and they are very much serving an apprenticeship, but they have the qualifications of IBDs and chemical engineering and so forth. What's the typical thing that you look for in a good apprentice, whether it be a distiller, whether it be maturation, cooperage? What are the qualities that IDL look for in somebody?
Yeah, so as you know, we have a graduate program in Irish distillers for many years now in terms of marketing and commercial. It's probably 20, 25 years now or more. And we started in I think just 2011 or 2012, taking in technical graduates from various disciplines, food science, engineering, etc. And that has been an amazing success. And a lot of people who started, back then are actually with us now doing various, roles in Middleton and in Fox and Geese. Supervisory roles, engineering roles, and other technical roles. So it's been a huge addition to helping us to bring talent on board in Middleton and Fox and Geese. In terms of what we're looking for, we I suppose first of all is the right match in terms of the profile of the person, or the personality profile, we really look for people that have very good people skills, have very good team players. And if I can give any advice to young graduates is, you have to be a really good team player. And what I mean by that is, getting on with people, working closely as a team, have very good communication skills. They are really, really important to us in terms of recruitment. The right fit is really important. And then on top of that, then you have the educational qualifications and the various projects that were undertaken. They're important, but I'd be honest, Sergius, I would put more emphasis on item number one, which is people skills, communication skills, team working, all that. I would really think that's so important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I very much get the impression nobody's going to work there in a silo and, just be left to their own devices. So
no.
That's great. Any other questions? So both Bow Street and Middleton are scheduled for July the 13th.
13th, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
What do you see as your biggest challenge then over the next period?
You mean from a role point of view?
From a role point of view, yeah. I mean, the markets will be what the markets are, but from a role point of view.
I think the initial challenge is spend as much time with Brian Nation over the next few weeks as I possibly can. And Brian has been really, really helpful over the last few weeks, so it's great. So that's kind of my initial thing is to I suppose absorb as much information as I possibly can from Brian and work together over the next number of weeks. Then I suppose I have to keep an eye on two balls here. One is the whole maturation side, which I will do, and we've lots of projects going on there. And then in terms of the distillation, spend more time down in the plant. I intend spending time in each particular area, and I suppose refresh what I already know in terms of those areas, and work with the team. And they've been so helpful over the last few weeks, and they're well wishes. So I'm looking forward to that, getting working with all those people. So they're the initial challenges, and then I suppose after that, Sergius, is just continue the work that Brian was doing in terms of innovation, spending a lot of time down in the micro distillery, and maybe do some more work in terms of liquid innovation and try a few things there.
Yeah. Could you give us a feeling of the scale of the operation down there? I mean, we know the stills are massive. I think 75,000 litres, some of them maybe more. And I saw 2 new stills arrive. Was it last week?
Yeah, 2 new wash stills. That's right.
The capacity at the moment and where it's going to and how long it takes to commission those stills and so forth. Can you tell us about that process?
Yeah, so in terms of, I suppose, capacity in Middleton, this year we're going to end up with coming in just short of maybe 50 million litres of alcohol. And that's probably where we'll end up at the end of financial year, June the 30th. So it's a very big operation. We produce on average maybe 1 to 1.4 million litres of alcohol a week. That works its way through the system, and obviously we have to fill off the cask in at the end of that. So we could be filling up to maybe between 8 and 10,000 barrels of filling a week. Right. And that those whiskey casks then have to be transported either to Middleton or out to our second maturation site in Dungourney. And there's quite a big logistics around all that. So that's sort of the scale of it. We have more capacity, and we've built in more capacity over the last number of years, ever since our expansion a number of years back. So it's a big operation. In terms of the wash stills, there's 2 wash stills that came in there during the week. The old wash stills are there since probably 1974, 75, and between wear and tear, they now have to be replaced, and that's what's happening at the moment. Are they? Correct, 4 sites, and 4 sites will be coming over to commission those two wash stills. So we'd hope to have those up and running by sometime maybe in August.
Okay, and is it true that when they do recommission these, you try to replicate the dents and bumps that are in the existing ones? Is that true?
Well, I'm not sure about the bumps and the dents and all that. That I'm not sure about that. But what we tried to do is replicate the design of the still exactly as the ones that came out. Dents and bumps, I don't think that would be, possible. But but certainly you're trying to get, in terms of the swanick and the line arm and the condensers, you want exactly the same still to reproduce the exact same liquid, and that's where we partner with Foresights.
And do you have, I mean, if the markets go where they possibly could go, is there the capacity at the moment? There's rumors, of course, all the time about extra sites and so forth. Would there be a big requirement for additional capacity?
No, we've a lot of capacity built in now over the last number of years. That'll see us for the next number of years. Now, I suppose a lot depends, Sergius, on what happens over the next number of months. Sure. What's happened with COVID has a serious impact around the world. I think we won't know for the next few months what impact it'll have or what the rebound will be. So I think we'll have to keep a close eye on that and what the rebound will be like. And then we'll have to make sort of decisions after that. But suffice to say, for the foreseeable future, capacity is not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, none of this was foreseen when we were all worrying about Brexit and American taxes.
Correct.
We thought that might be the threat.
Yeah.
Another question from Mike Sheehan. What's the next big release after MVR?
After MVR, well, that would be telling everybody, wouldn't it? I wonder, is the question specifically in relation to Middleton? I'm not sure.
I imagine is like they're probably discussing Dargailloch, new Dargailloch, or
So the next Dargailloch, we launched Knockrath, as you know, earlier this year, and that's been a fantastic success. Great reviews. I'm delighted with it. It's super whiskey, and as you know, Sergius, a lot of work goes into the Midleton Dargailloch, so it's just great to see the final output. The next batch is in preparation at the moment. It's maturing. It's going to take some time. It's in its early stages. But suffice to say, it'll take another year and a half or so before it's ready, maybe more.
Right. Okay. Well, something to look forward to. I'm sure there'll be a couple of releases in the meantime. Obviously, Irish whiskey has the advantage that we can work with different cask types, and I know you've worked with chestnut and limousine and Spanish oak, French oak, Hungarian, different. I mean, what's been the most challenging of woods to work with? I think cherry, I remember being mentioned for one of the most difficult.
I suppose, look, we're all used to working with oak, and it's sort of tried and tested, and we know what to expect, be it American oak or Spanish oak or Irish oak. And yes, we started experimenting, it's probably 10 or 15 years ago now, on various wood types. And chestnut was probably the first one, I think, that we sort of released in terms of an innovative cask type. That worked pretty well, and we knew from the very start. I remember the very first time we nosed that and tasted it in the lab, myself and Billy Lighton, and we knew from the start that the flavor profile was really, really nice. Good balance, and the cask itself was it worked well. There was no major issues. We initially thought that we'd get us maybe a lot of leakers and that sort of stuff, but it didn't happen. And that's down really to the Coopers in France, Sigma-Maru. They made a really, really good cask with a sort of an extra thick stave and head. So leakages actually didn't materialize. So we were really, really pleased with that. Then after that, we Hungarian oak, which again is oak, and we knew what to expect. The difference with the Hungarian oak was that it was Quercus petraea from Hungary, very tight grain, lovely aromatic compounds, and really, really, it's a fantastic oak. I really love the Hungarian oak, but we knew what to expect, so that worked pretty well. Then we moved on to acacia. And again, that's quite a dense wood. It would have a density similar to French oak and American oak. So again, subtle contributions, relatively easy enough to work with, no leakers, and it was very, very solid. Cherry, on the other hand, that was challenging, and that's probably been the most challenging that we've worked on over the last number of years. In terms of the cask themselves, you know, we had a few leakers at the start, but we got those repaired. And then the flavor profile was challenging as well in terms of the length of time, and we had to do some recasking as well to figure it all out. So it took a bit of time to get our heads around the cherry, but eventually we did, and I was delighted then to launch that. I think it was maybe last year, and it's gone down really well. A very different flavor profile, the cherry. You know, it's not dense. It would have a low density, very high porosity. But with the work that we did in terms of recasking and seasoning and the whole lot, we got a very, very good whiskey, and I'm really, really pleased with it. So yeah, to answer your question, cherry, I'd say, yeah.
Cherry's the hardest, yeah. Are there any other woods obviously you're working on that probably wouldn't be able to disclose, but obviously
we're working on different types of wood, but it's, you know, look, there's probably only a certain amount of you know, timbers that are suitable for holding liquid and spirits. That's the first challenge which you have to get over. So yeah, again, we're working away. We're doing lots of trials, but I suppose you know, I'm reluctant to say what's working and what's not working. Time will tell. And with maturation, it just takes so long to figure all this out. And I'm kind of glad in one way that, again, going back to the dual role, that I can keep a close eye on these, because, you know, they were my babies really from the start, and I can stick with it and keep a close eye on them.
The Angel's Share, everybody talks about the Angel's Share, and I know some colossal number of bottles are lost every day. Is there any look at technology to alleviate that?
Yeah, Angel's Share, in terms of volume, it's significant. Our finance team, you know, have sleepless nights over Angel's Share. It's about 25, maybe 30,000 bottles of Jameson lost a day on Angel's Share from both our maturation sites. So it's a really, really big impact. But I suppose just to summarize in terms of Angel's Share, I see two sides of it. One is there's liquid losses, actual physical liquid, and then there's evaporative losses. And I think you have to split up both when you're looking at casks. Liquid losses are controllable. And what I mean by liquid losses is that you have leaks from staves, leaks from bungs, cracked heads, and this is, you know, these are things that can be resolved in terms of coopering and attention to detail on the filling line. So what I advise most people is, look, first of all, tackle what you can control, which is liquid leaks. And you just don't want barrels going out to warehouse with bungs leaking or with staves leaking. That's just not good enough. So that's the first thing. And again, the quality of the cask that we get in, and the collaboration with the cooperages, and for them to understand what we're looking for is so important in preventing you know, leaky casks. And again, we have a very good cooperage team in Middleton, and you've Ger and you've Killian and Derek now, and they're really, really getting stuck in, and they know what to look for in terms of casks. And likewise, you know, be it, you know, forklift drivers and anyone else that's involved in handling the casks, they all know now what to look out for in terms of leaks. So that's that side of the house. Then on the other side, you have the evaporative losses, and that's much more challenging. And I know there's lots of studies going on around the world, and, you know, you receive emails from, you know, various people on proposing various things to control it. You know, a simple way to control it would be control the humidity and the temperature of the warehouse. You have forced ventilation, or you can have heating or cooling in the warehouse. But the problem with that is that oxidation and the ingress of oxygen is really, really important in terms of the flavor profile, and the maturation and the magic that takes place very much depends on this evaporation as well. So if you do that and you do it to a certain level, you're going to end up with a changed flavor profile, and that's the last thing you want.
Yeah.
So nobody has cracked it yet. Maybe in the future someone will crack it, but I think that's a long way down the tracks. But what I'd say to people is control the controllables, leakers, all that they're easily controlled. Evaporative losses, keep the engines happy. That's what I'd say for the moment.
Okay. Look, I'm getting lots of messages in here wishing you really best of luck in your new role. It must be really satisfying. I'm delighted for you, and you've always been really approachable and very generous with your knowledge. So I appreciate that. I suppose I want to leave you with a couple of questions. When you're not working, what are you doing?
When I'm not working, I like sport. I from a very young age, I'm very much involved in GA, hurling and football. My kids play it. I obviously don't play anymore now, but my kids play it, and I coach the under-14 hurling team, and we're putting plans together to go back training next week, which is fantastic news. The GA are returning, and there's lots of protocols in place, and that's all fine, and we're going back next week. So a lot of my time would go into coaching, and I've Breed and Shifra, my two girls, they also play camogie and football, and Quiveen, my boy, he's under 14, so loads of time goes into that. I run, I do a lot of running. I like keeping fit. I always did, and I'd like to be fitter, but so yeah, I like running, and I play a bit of golf. I'm back playing golf actually. I gave it up for a few years because of just time, and it was very difficult to get everything going. But because of the various shutdowns and activities being shut down in terms of GA, I went back playing golf when the golf courses reopened. So
that's when the trees get their revenge on you.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it. And,
absolutely. The first tee box in Mitchelstown, there's a tree on the left hand side, which always caused me a difficulty.
You know it well.
Yeah. But so I do gardening. I love gardening. I spend a lot of the weekend actually gardening. So I've lots of trees here growing as well, and in my own garden. So I like gardening, and I suppose spending time with my wife Deirdre. And that would be about it.
Yeah. I suppose one final question. In 30 years' time, when you're sitting down drinking a bottle of Kevin OGorman Legacy, and you're reading your name on the label, what would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be thought of when you retired?
I suppose, first of all, to be a good person. I'd like to be looked at, a positive individual who's contributed to Irish whiskey in general, and Irish distillers in particular. I'd like to be looked back as, someone that was supportive and helpful of people. As you say, in Middleton, we don't work in silos, and we're all very, very supportive of each other. And again, I'd like to help to bring new young people along the way. As I say, I coach under 14s, and I have a real passion for coaching and helping people. So I'd like to bring the young people. As you know, on Method and Madness, we've lots of apprentices and young distillers, and we know Catherine on board. Yeah. And I'd like to spend as much time with those people, and I suppose just maybe show them what I know. I'm not saying I know everything, far from it, but I'd like to maybe pass on whatever skills I have to those people, because I think that's so important. If you look back to when I started, people like Brendan Monks and Barry Crockett, Dave Quinn, and it's very important. They passed on the information, they showed us what was important, they guided us, they mentored us, and I'd like to do that as well. So I think if I'm, if I can look back and say, look, I was helpful, supportive, and produced the best whiskies in the world, and I suppose be innovative as well. Yes. We can't stand still, and I'm very proud over the last 10-15 years the innovations that we had in maturation, and I'd like to be looked at as an innovative distiller, and I suppose that would be it.
That's a nice legacy to have. Look, you've been nothing but a fantastic ambassador for the industry as well as for IDL. Really wish you every success going forward. Hope it's a long, successful career. I hope we get to hear lots from you and we get to see lots of exciting new products in the future. And thank you for taking the time with us tonight. And look, just want to wish you Sláinte.
Sláinte,
and the very best over the next 30 years.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank
Sláinte.
you. Sláinte. So that was Kevin O'Gorman, a really exciting insight there into what's happening in Irish distillers and in fact in the world of Irish whiskey. A really great ambassador for the industry, as I said. And thank you very much to him for coming on. Just for next week's show, we will be announcing the winner of our Belfast Whiskey ticket. So it's an opportunity to win samples of 230 whiskies. So we'll get that announced next week. And we have a very special guest next week as well. Next week, we're going to be joined by none other than Charles McLean, synonymous with Scotch whiskey, I suppose, but obviously a huge interest in Irish whiskey and a real name out there. And he's very interested in Irish whiskey, a great spokesman for whiskey in general. And he'll be drawing the winner for our Belfast Whiskey competition. So again, if you have any questions for next week, we'll post on social media. So if you keep an eye out on Facebook, on Instagram and Twitter, we'll keep you posted. So that's the end of episode 4. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Irish Whiskey Magazine, for the support as well. And if you'd like to find out more, just go to irishwhiskeymagazine.com. Have a very good evening. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll join you same time next week. Thank you.